Welcome, all of you beautiful, darling sweethearts, to episode number 51 of the DJP. I can't believe it's already the middle of November. You know, time really flies when you never give yourself time to rest. I don't know why that's such an issue for me. I think it probably stems from some sort of deep-seated childhood emotional issues that live inside my head and tell me that I'm only really valuable if I live up to standards that were never my own and I never wanted in the first place, right? But fuck it. Here we are, and I'm doing the most with every day that I'm given. Or at least I'm trying to. Oh shit. So this weekend, my girlfriend and I went to Rockville and Daytona, which might sound totally lame to a lot of you, but it was fucking amazing. It was actually a really, really good time. And it was like, holy creeping Jesus. What a crazy 5 days that was. And let's just say that social distancing was not a thing there. And I couldn't be happier about that because I'm really ready for all of that to just be put behind us. Like, let's move forward into the future and stop hating each other over every little thing that we can drum up. Doesn't that sound almost magical? Like ethereal? Like more fun than wanting to bash people's skulls in for not being vaccinated? Well, it does to me anyway. Anyway, as everyone that listens knows, I'm in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, so I'm part of a fellowship that frowns on the use of all substances, which I don't really agree with 100% because science and empirical data have shown me that psychedelics can have massive, life-changing benefits. So no, I don't agree with their stance on plant medicines, and even though I will die on that hill, I follow the rules of the program, or else people will judge the shit out of me. You know, but should I really base my entire life off of the opinions of other people when science has shown time and time again the efficacy of these substances? I just don't know. But for the time being, that is what I'm doing. But as I said, I will always advocate for the use of psychedelics no matter what I may be doing or not doing in my own personal life. And that is exactly what my guest, Keith Gilmore, and I talked about extensively on this episode. Keith is a writer and a coach that focuses on culture, ethics, psychology, spirituality, philosophy, and psychedelics. Imagine that. His interest lies in understanding and addressing the tendency of our age towards cynicism, nihilism, finger-pointing, and disconnection, and he works at discovering and exploring methods for interconnection, healing, and reinvigorating culture with spirit. So let's reinvigorate our own spirit by welcoming, without further ado, Keith Gilmore.
Catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information. Forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. Using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
Anyways, how are you, man?
Doing really well, Justin. Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here, Keith. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance and be able to speak with you, for sure.
Likewise.
Like I said, I saw your bio, man, and just a lot of the topics really drew me to you and made me want to get you as a guest. Most specifically, shadow work and your interest in psychedelics. So, like, what capacity is do you have an interest in psychedelics?
Very deeply. I would say it's been the biggest force in my life of all forces. So it's extremely relevant to kind of everything that I do in life, my own personal work on myself, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, my professional work out in the world, how I draw my creative work from. I would say it's the mycelium of the psychedelics, so to speak, has connected me to many things and connected those things together in my life.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, psychedelics seem to have that effect on pretty much everybody that experiences them. If they take an interest in them. If it's a one-off, maybe not so much. But if they're like, oh, these things are super beneficial for me, And these things have the potential to foster a lot of change, not only within myself, but within society in general. I think that people kind of latch onto that because who doesn't want to see positive change, right?
Yeah. And the culture seems to be waking up to it in a major way that is really promising to see. And that comes with its own set of, we can say, things to watch out for, things to be careful with. But I'm very hopeful. And I think that it's really promising. There's a lot of promise that the psychedelic emergence that's happening right now poses for us.
Yeah, there's definitely like what I call a psychedelic renaissance of sorts happening. And I think that's kind of right in line with, there seems to be just a big spiritual renaissance happening right now as well. I don't know if you've noticed that, but just for like the past few years, it's been kind of glaringly obvious for me. It's like, wow, there's like a giant spiritual awakening just happening. And maybe it's just because I float in those circles. It could just be like an echo chamber for myself because I surround myself with people who are very like-minded thinkers. So maybe it could just, like I said, be an echo chamber type of effect. Or maybe not. Maybe there actually is some sort of grand awakening happening. What do you think about that?
Yeah. The thing about echo chambers is it's hard to tell when you're in one. But I tend to agree with you. I think I'm seeing the same things. So maybe we're caught in similar chambers, but I'm seeing the same things. And I think that it's a result of us living in this world that has the spirituality has been stamped out of it for so long,
right? Due
to just the mechanistic way of thinking and, through the consumerism, what Terence McKenna called consumer object fetishism, the way that we kind of lose ourselves to just these kind of mechanistic processes, the autoplay of YouTube and Netflix, right. The unthinking way that our culture interfaces with us. And I think people are just fed up with it, and something deep within them is yearning for something more deep out there, and it's out there. And so it's reemerging and we're reconnecting with it.
Right. Yeah. One thing, the availability of, spiritual speakers and messages and just spiritual people in general, it just seems to be higher these days, and I think the internet has a lot to do with that. I think there's just more information available to people. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. It seems like, as you said, McKenna called the mechanicistic fetishes. We get so wrapped up in the daily vicissitudes of life. And, people just get so caught up trying to pay the bills which is a hard thing to do these days, especially these days, with the fucking inflation's through the roof, man. And it's insane. It's insane. Like, I think they're paying like $8. I'm not sure where you're located. Where are you at?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Okay. So yeah, I think in California, they're paying what, $8 per gallon for gas? What are you guys paying up there right now?
Maybe somewhere near 4.
Okay. See, that's crazy. It's like you go south for a few hours and it's like $8. It's like, So, I mean, you even with, man, it's rough. It's a rough time. So I think maybe because times are, they're not easy. I think maybe that could account for people trying to grasp onto something that's a little more ethereal and more metaphysical than the physical now.
Yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with it too. There's a confluence of circumstances that have led us to this place where the psychedelic renaissance is arising, where this kind of re-emergence of spiritual connection is arising. This yearning for something more is arising. And, perhaps this has always been there to various degrees under and bobbing up and down over the surface, but it feels very potent right now. And I think that it's our duty as citizens, as human beings, to help coax this emergence into the world more fully in a proper, beautiful, healing, helpful way.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think anybody that is even inclined towards any kind of spiritual thought or abstract, spiritual thinking, it's kind of our duty to put these messages out there to people and be like, and just be another voice, because I think it's the collective unconscious that will bring it all together. It's, no one person can do it, but we collectively, we can foster change. And it seems like it's really needed right now. There's, like I said, everything's pretty screwed up out there, between the pandemic and, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And I don't even really care to discuss the pandemic anymore because I think we've all been talking about that till we're blue in the face. But, yeah, I think there's this drastic spiritual shift, and maybe we owe it to the pandemic. I think I've seen a lot of speed just in the past year and a half pick up in the spiritual front. And I think it's because, people were faced with their own mortality. So in their face, like unlike they've ever experienced, like our generation, and surrounding generations around us, we've never experienced something like this where it was so in your face, like, hey, this is a real thing and look out, and maybe that accounts for everyone like going, oh shit, I better get my life in line. I don't know. I'm just speculating. That's all I can do.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things, like I said, a confluence of circumstances that are coming together, and all of those things combined are creating really a golden opportunity for the emergence of something new, the ability to create something totally different than what we've seen before, at least in recent history, and to really allow us to come together as human beings and create a beautiful world. I feel really hopeful.
Yeah. Come together as human beings. What a novel idea that is. What a novel idea. It bothers me. I'm all for, I'm very, very social. I care about people. I hate the marginalization that goes on in society. I hate labeling people. I hate when people label themselves. And the reason for that is I think it does nothing to serve the collective. I think all that does is really cause further division. And I think this is the time when we need unity more than anything. I think we all need to band together because, at this point, there's always hope, right? There's always hope. But at times things can seem unabashedly fucked. But, they have to be almost unabashedly fucked to be able to be fixed, right? Because, you can't fix something unless you notice that it's broken.
That's well put. Yeah. I feel that the elements that we all contain within us, the drives for love, for a warm, loving touch, for harmony within and without, for our families to do well, all of these things that are really fundamental to the human experience. I think that we can look to these things as unifying forces and kind of get underneath the political overlay that so many of us get lost in, where politics has kind of supplanted religion, the role religion previously played in our society. And so people become very attached to the political ideologies, sometimes at the sacrifice of those core human things, the desire for love and belonging and peace and interconnectedness. And so I think if we turn to those things, those very deep things, and you mentioned the collective unconscious, we can turn to those aspects as well, the deep well of myth and story, all of these things that stretch eternally into the human past. We can find the elements that will connect us amidst all of the cultural, crises, real and imagined, that are happening right now.
Yeah, for sure. That makes me think of something I read on your website, the cultural shadow. And I think, it's going to take a lot of cultural shadow work to bring us all together. It's going to take a lot of integration of the cultural shadow into the cultural landscape. And how do we get people on board with that? Like, how do you get people on board with that? Because I clearly, you have done extensive shadow work, or you wouldn't speak about it. And I'm in the middle of doing yet even more extensive shadow work on myself right now. And as we know, it can be cathartic. It's good, actually looking at some of those aspects of ourselves and coming to peace with them. And I think that's important to note, that you want to come to peace with them and accept them. You can't get rid of your shadow. It's never going away. Like, you have to just accept it as what it is. And that can be difficult too. What was your experience when you first started doing shadow work? What was that like for you?
I mean, it definitely, there's an element of catharsis, and there's an element of, it's, by definition, is the place that you least want to look. So it takes a lot of overcoming of fear, of overcoming of mistrust of yourself. And it takes a lot of effort to be able to do it. And I can't say if I'm doing it well or not, but I'm working on it. And I think that, having humility, having grace for yourself is extremely important. Generosity for yourself, because it's tremendously difficult work to look at the aspects of yourself that are most abhorrent or most make you want to turn your eyes away, right, and instead to turn toward it and look at it and say, hey, you're me, I'm you, let's talk.
Right. Yeah. People do the whole spiritual bypass thing a lot with the shadow work. I think a lot of times people try to, like I said, they try to get rid of the shadow, which is never a good idea, because, like I said, it's never going anywhere, first of all. And then I don't know, man, there's a lot of people out there, especially when you get into the like, quote unquote spiritual community, that just come off as very inauthentic. And you can really tell, those people are pretty easy to spot. You know what I mean? The spiritual charlatans, and they're out there. Like, so beware. Anyone listening, beware. They're out there. Fuck, I might even be one and not even know it. I don't even know. I don't even know at this point. Maybe. I hope not. But, only time will tell.
I think you're right, Justin, that there's something in each of us that is authentic. So when we're listening to someone, when we're speaking to someone, that part of us can recognize if the other person's being authentic. Mm-hmm. And it's why, if a politician goes on a 3-hour podcast, you can, at the end of that 3 hours, you can have a very clear diagnosis of who this person is, how much they're lying, like where they actually stand, so on and so forth. And so I think, if you listen to someone speak for an hour, a couple hours, you can know, because there's something in you that is designed to recognize authenticity, and it's the authentic part of you as well. So you feel that resonance, right, when someone's not just up there trying to bullshit you. Yeah.
You definitely can tell when somebody's trying to bullshit you. At least I can. Like, it seems like I think I've always been that way. I think I've always been pretty good at reading people. Like, I can tell when somebody's wearing that mask pretty quick, because it's just so glaringly obvious to me. Like, sometimes I wish I didn't see that in people. Sometimes I wish that I didn't know when they were full of shit, so I could be just blissfully unaware. I think like the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. And I think that's really true. it sucks knowing people's intentions a lot of the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can tell when somebody's just saying something to gain something. And I guess that's because, like the shadow, we know it. You only see the things in other people that exist within yourself. So, I don't know, man. I think that's been the roughest part of the shadow work for me, is just like, what do you not like about other people questions? Like, oh man, like, because those are direct things those are me. That's me. Those are the things I don't like about me. Yeah. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. That's one of the best ways to get there is just really pay attention. And as soon as something starts irking you about somebody else or a situation, you turn that lens around and you say, okay, who in me, what part of me, where in me is this?
Right.
Let's find it. Let's get to know it.
What's been interesting for me too is doing this work. I've been paying particular attention to sensations in the body, mindfulness of the body when those feelings arise. Like if I'd say I'm annoyed by something someone's doing, or we could put any emotion, we could attach any emotion to that. It doesn't just have to be annoyance, obviously, but just feeling those sensations in the body, and then throughout the day, noting those sensations arise when like other scenarios present themselves. It's like, oh, but it's like before the emotion even happens, like I feel it in the body happening. And it's like, oh, that's weird. So, and then you start picking up on the little subtle cues throughout the day that your shadow's going, hey, let me out. And you're like, no, just chill, bro. Just chill. Yeah. Oh man. It's such a weird thing to do. It's such weird work to do on yourself. And I think it's so important though, I think really I think integrating, like, doing this deep shadow work and like really like deep introspection, I think is so important to the human experience. I think a life who is it? I can't remember who the quote was. Life unexplored is a life not worth living. I think it might have been Socrates.
Socrates.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've just always been like really thirsty for knowledge about a variety of topics, but mostly myself. Like, if you don't know yourself, how can you learn anything else? I think though, Jack Kornfield always says you have to tend the part of the garden that you can touch, and I think that's so fucking true. Like you really, that shit starts at home. Since we're rattling off fun quotes, Ram Dass said the only thing I can do for you is work on myself, and the only thing you can do for me is work on yourself. And I live by that, and that's why I do this deep, grimy work for myself, is because ultimately that just makes me a better person. It makes me have better utility in society, which in turn makes society better. Yeah.
Yeah. I really think that's how it works as well. It seems to be clear that's how it works. And I think importantly, through doing work like this and learning to love your shadow, you learn to love yourself. Right. And through loving yourself, you can learn to love the other. And, each person being a mirror of me, each person reflecting the good and bad qualities of me. And if I'm unable to love myself, then how am I going to love another person? If I'm unable to love another person, how am I going to love myself? Right. Because we are all, I don't want to dip my toes in the cliche water, but I think on the fundamental level, we are unified in our consciousness. Like you are me, you are my brother, and you are me.
Yes, go there. You feel free, dip your toe into that one. I say that shit all the time. It's like, we are all one consciousness experiencing life subjectively. Absolutely. And I try to view people like that. It's like every time somebody does get under my skin for something, I try to like have that compassion and just be like, look at me having a hard time in that incarnation. Cause that's what it is. It's like we're all experiencing the same kind of consciousness. So it leads me to believe that it is the same consciousness. We're just experienced in different nodes in the network of consciousness. Yeah.
Nodes is a good way to put it. And that's, had that experience. I've had that vision on psychedelics, taking mushrooms, of this vision of, in the Matrix where there's the massive columns that the machines have created and all the humans are plugged into their own separate little, container there. The vision that came to me was, it's basically that the column of human consciousness is that. And when you take the psychedelics, you're pulled out and all the little nuts and bolts are twisted and tightened up, and you get cleaned out, and, everything's lubricated, and then you get shoved back in. And then that, because you've had that tune up done, you're now affecting the field around you. And so the question to be asked is, if many of us are going through that process, is that going to exponentially increase our ability to heal, to transcend this dire situation that we found ourselves in?
I would like to think so. But I'm also a huge advocate for psychedelics because of that. Because I think it does exactly that. It pulls you out, it cleans you off, cleans you out, pulls all the tubes out and goes, "Hey, wake the fuck up." And then shoves you back in and you're like, "Oh shit." Like, "Oh, I'm back. I had all this knowledge and now I don't remember. I remember little bits and pieces of it, but at one point it's like you knew it all, you get that big information dump, especially on like large doses of psilocybin or a breakthrough DMT experience. You get that huge, it's like, oh, all the knowledge in the universe right here. And then it's gone immediately. And you're like, fuck. You still, I think you managed to bring back little bits and pieces of it sometimes though. I think so. I hope so. I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah, it's so much like a dream in that way. It's like the dream state where as soon as you're out of it, it starts disappearing. And so but there's practices you can do. And with dreams, if you start writing down your dreams every day, the detail you're able to carry back into your waking life becomes more and more. And there is something as well to that with the psychedelic experience, and something like writing down everything you can remember as soon as you're out of it can be extremely helpful. And then, the task is to do something with that, to follow through with whatever it is that you might have gained in that experience and go out in the world and do something with it. And I think that a lot of you talk about connecting with this greater well of knowledge. It's like, I feel like a lot of that, many people, including myself, report the experience of, it feels like you're remembering something that you already knew. Yeah.
It's like a coming home almost.
Yes, precisely. It's a coming home. And that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Where are we coming home to, and how do we bring that home to here, to where we are?
Right. It's a good question. It's one that needs further exploration, I think. And that's why I'm really happy to see, psychedelics finally getting their fair shake in clinical settings again, and research finally being done on them again. After we had a moratorium on any research for 50 years, it's like we're 50 years behind. Like, look at how far technology has advanced in 50 years. And then you think, well, we could have been this far ahead culturally had these not been made illegal in the first place. I think just the sheer amount of utility within psychedelics for self-introspection and collective introspection, I think it's undeniable, And I think we've been done a great disservice by the fact that they were made illegal for so long. I think the fact that we criminalized nature in the first place is absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, it's really the amount of suffering that has been sanctioned by proxy due to that illegal status is really unforgivable. And at the same time, there's part of me that can understand where kind of the powers that be saw the magnitude of power that these things had for cultural awakening, for self-awakening, and just said, no, like, no, it's not happening. And of course, that's the inappropriate response. But I get how, the frightened parent just using the strategy of just say no seems maybe from that perspective to be right. Even though it's, you have to let your child explore the world and experience things and make mistakes along the way in order to get to an integrated place. So it seems like at least the governmental structures are kind of stepping aside right now because, well, who's to say why? But it seems like there's just too much of a momentum of the tide that, you can't stand in front of it at this point or you get blown over.
Right. I think one of the big things is it does make you think for yourself. I think that psychedelic use in general opens your mind to abstract thought and abstract ways of thinking. And I think that is terrifying to power structure. I think you're exactly right. It's pretty easy to see why they wouldn't want those, these substances to be legal, especially, at the height of the Vietnam War. There's a massive power struggle going on there just within. And so, it's no secret as to probably why they were made illegal. I mean, we pretty easy to figure that one out. It's like, oh, we don't want people, questioning what we're doing. And that's exactly what psychedelics do, at least for me, is they just make me question things. Not even so much whether things are right or wrong, but why they are in the first place. We're given these sets of rules and regulations and, told how to think and told what to do and told this is how you make your money and you go to, get your job from go to 9 to 5 job and you get married and you get the white picket fence and it's the American dream. And it's like, no, you don't have to live that life to be happy. In fact, a lot of times it seems like for a lot of people, that life is more a cage than anything else. There's a lot of untapped potential that is lost. There's a lot of momentum that's lost due to trying to live up to some societal standards that never made sense to you in the first place. Yeah,
right. At the core too. And people are waking up to that and people are leaving their careers because they're miserable because what they're doing is betraying something at the core of them. And so, there's like we're talking about, there seems to be great awakenings happening on a lot of levels. And so for me, one of the keys is making sure that we put the infrastructure in place in order to make sure that we stay in alignment as everything's getting shaken up. And I think the psychedelics are an excellent way to tap into what that infrastructure should be. But even within the psychedelic experience, it's super helpful to have some kind of ritualistic infrastructure, so that, because otherwise you can get spun out into space and kind of not know where you are. Right. So the creating a healthy infrastructure to help keep us on course, to guide us in a proper direction at this time of great upheaval, I think is going to be extremely important for us as we move forward.
What do you think that looks like?
To me, I mean, I have this idea that if we just replaced all billboard advertisements with art pieces, what would change in our psyches? How would the experience of living in a city transform immediately?
Right.
Where rather than seeing some product or service that is being shoved down your throat on a 30-foot billboard, instead it's a beautiful work of art. How would your experience of the world change?
Right.
I think, who knows, but I think that surrounding ourselves with beauty helps us remember that we're beautiful, that the world is beautiful, and that rather than seeing a toothpaste advertisement, which is just so devoid of anything human that matters.
Right.
How different would
dental
that make?
care is important.
Well, yeah.
No, but
that's fair. I don't mean to pick on big toothpaste here.
No, but I agree with you, man. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. I love that idea. Actually, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a, man. I'm gonna. That's
just an example. And exactly, if we look at the architecture that we exist in, again, I live in a city. So
right.
I see over the past 5 years, all these new massive high-rise apartment buildings are going up. I don't know how they're going to find all the people to fill them because people seem to be fleeing the cities. But the architecture, I just think beautification is an untapped well that we can really look to in order to help guide us. If we create art with deep substance that resonates with something really core in the human soul, and if we surround ourselves with beautiful buildings and nature and art and integrate our lives in this way, how different could everything be? How different would you feel waking up and walking out your front door every morning? Probably a lot.
Oh, yeah. Undoubtedly so. I know I would feel tremendously different. And, one thing I did a long time ago is I quit watching the news like many years ago. I just stopped. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's because of that. It's because, if you feed your brain negative input all day, you're going to have negative thoughts. You're absolutely going to have negative thoughts, but if you surround it with beauty and if you surround it with positivity, you're absolutely going to be filled with beauty and positivity. And I think that a lot of people just don't even realize that, I don't even think they're cognizant of it. I think they're just ignorant to the fact that they can, it's just like nutrition. It's just like physical nutrition, They say you are what you eat. If you eat a bunch of sugar and you eat a bunch of crap, you're probably not going to be in the best shape, right? But if you eat, fresh vegetables, and if you eat meat, if you eat, lean meats and, just have proper nutrition, you're going to be in better physical condition. And if you're feeding your brain positive nutrition, you're going to be in better mental condition. It just goes without saying. It seems intuitive almost that they would correlate, but people just don't put those pieces together a lot. I think that's a big issue. I think that needs to be in the forefront. And these things need to be taught to people. It's like, look, don't surround yourself with negative people. Don't surround yourself. It's just like I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering addict. And so, one of the big things that they tout in the rooms is, people, places, and things. You got to change your people, places, and things. It's like, yeah, because you were surrounding yourself with negative people, negative places, and doing negative things. So if you change that to positive people, positive places, and positive things, automatically you're giving yourself a better advantage to begin with, because you don't have the negative influence constantly beating at your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, Justin. I think that's a major untapped potential avenue that we could explore much deeper. And I wrote a piece about, in part about the contrast between content and art, and how we live in a world that promotes this idea of content, which is something designed to be consumed and then forgotten about. and how that so much mirrors our throwaway culture and, plastic forks and spoons and so much of what we surround ourselves with is this kind of stuff that's designed to break. So you throw it away. Right. So you buy another one. And the content world is kind of in the same way, where if we think about real artisanship, instead of a plastic fork, it's a handcrafted fork that will last 1,000 years, right. Then that will help us to reorient as well, because if you log into YouTube on a private browsing window, just the default homepage of YouTube, it's really disheartening to see what is being watched. It's really like, on the large part, it's pretty meaningless in terms of it's not touching on something true to the human spirit. Yeah. It's just things that are being churned out in order to churn something out, in order to have somebody watch it, in order for that person to be distracted from their life for long enough to forget about all the pain they're in, until the next thing starts auto playing to help distract them the next 5 minutes. Yeah. And this is the state of the world that we're in. And at the same time, there's a renaissance of art where all of this incredible, beautiful music and film and visual art and writing and poetry and all of these things are also being created, but our valence is so tuned toward the content piece versus the art piece, because it's easier, because it allows us to disconnect, and which I get. We live in a world where there's so much heaviness. Yeah. It's like we need to disconnect sometimes, but it's all a balance. We also need to be able to touch on the shadow and touch on it probably more than we want to. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's what, TikTok is a prime example. It's like little 3-minute bite-sized distractions, just to keep you distracted from what's, really going on around you. And it's like, well, maybe we should pay attention to what's going on around us. Maybe we should, instead of ignoring the issues that we have in our lives, maybe if we worked on fixing those, that might be more beneficial for us. It might be more utility in actually addressing the issues than just distracting ourselves with Highland Boys or whatever the latest thing is today. I'm sure they've moved on to something else by now, because, it's an immediate gratification culture. People don't like doing the hard things. They like what's easy, and they like what's fast, and they like what's quick. It's just like you said, we got the throwaway culture. I don't like it. I don't like it. Yeah. And like you touched on earlier, I think people don't understand the degree to which we're all conditioned to think that this is just the way that we should be living. Right. And again, touching on the psychedelic sphere, having the psychedelic experience, every time I go into that space, I'm reawakened to some aspect of my life or of the larger culture that is just not where it needs to be. And when I'm in my default life, that I can go for ever, really, without querying those aspects of myself. And so I have a lot of grace for people and for us, and for the youth, for the elders. Like we're all part of this system. We're in this system that is based on distraction. And so we're constantly distracted. And I fall victim to it all the time, constantly distracted. And so I have a lot of grace and keep that in my heart for myself, for all of us, because it's hard to, we talk about an echo chamber and being able to see or hear outside of the echo chamber. We're in a distraction chamber constantly. We live in a distraction chamber. And so if we're constantly distracted, we really can't say it's our fault per se. It's where we are.
I mean, I think if we really get down to it, we can all take personal responsibility for anything in our lives, even the distraction culture, because I feel that if we had been paying more attention in the first place, we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So I think we're all a little culpable in that regards. And we also, like we were already talking about, you get to choose what you surround yourself with. If you choose to be distracted, and granted, that's not saying I don't fucking scroll my phone 50,000 times a day, because I'm a, technology junkie and a social media whore just like everybody else, unfortunately. And that's something I'm trying to kind of work my way through, because it is distracting. And how much fucking time do I waste in a day just checking Facebook or something stupid that is of no benefit to me or anybody else? It's a major distraction. And I think it sucks. It fucking sucks, because while I do enjoy a lot of the content that is out there, and not necessarily just the distraction content, but like I'm more gravitate towards, things like, not necessarily, this podcast, but things like this obviously I don't listen to my own podcast, because that would be an exercise in narcissism and ultimate insanity for me. But, I just enjoy, I enjoy meaningful content, like you're saying, like, I find a good conversation about pertinent topics. Like I think the one we're having right now would fall into that category. I view this as art. This is art for me. And not only is it art, but I get benefit from conversations like this, not only having them, but listening to them as well. There's a lot of really good information available to people right now. And that's the interesting thing about the internet, is it's like the Tao, it's like you can't have the good content without the bullshit too. But like, I just wish people would, go more towards the good stuff than the distraction stuff. It's like, you could distract yourself and still gain something from it. Like, you can distract yourself with all kinds of positive things too, that aren't just distraction just for distraction's sake. And I think that's a lot of what it is a lot of it is just distraction for distraction's sake. And like I said, I gravitate more towards things that, if I'm going to be doing something else, if I'm not going to be putting my energy into something that would be productive for me or those around me, then I can at least distract myself with something that hopefully will be a positive distraction,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And I love that you invoke the Tao, because I think that really encapsulates it perfectly, because there's a light side and a shadow side to everything.
Yeah.
And it's all part of reality. It's all part of the Tao. And sometimes distraction is exactly what we need. And we have to try our best to make sure everything's in harmonious balance. But there's something you can get from watching a video of a kitten snuggling with a dog that you can't get from anything else. There's something that, that blossoms something in your heart when you see that, that you can't get from anything else. So
I saw a video of a cat and a raccoon earlier, and they were like snuggled up on this chair, and the raccoon's like petting the cat. And I'm like, that is like the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's the best, man. Yeah. It's the best. And
see, that's a positive distraction for me. Like that is like a heartwarming, like soul reaffirming, like, the world is beautiful. Just watching that raccoon pet this fucking cat was like the most, it really set the tone for my day, because my girlfriend showed it to me this morning, and I was like, that's amazing. Right. I love it.
Yeah. And that's so great.
It's like, let's start our day with that instead of like World Star,
right? Or if World Star was raccoons petting cats, you know.
I'd watch more World Star then.
But I think that's great, because it's not, when you really get down to it, at that point, it's not a distraction. It's a reminder. And it's a reminder that there is beauty in the world, and it's everywhere. And, you know, if that can be where our distractions get to, then we're doing all right.
Man, I hope so. I think we are. I think we're going to be just fine. I think, like I said, you can't be free from suffering unless you've already suffered. You know, you have to have gone through suffering to be free of suffering. Yet again, that's just the Tao. Like, one can't exist without the other. So like, there has to be the bullshit in order to have the fun bits too. You know, the nice bits, the life reaffirming, like you see source in everything moments. You know, I think you have to see the dark in everything to be able to see the light in everything. And because they're not mutually exclusive, you know, they're completely synonymous with one another. One can't exist without the other. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And so, I think we need probably need the dumb shit on the internet too, just as much as we need the positive bits. The news, I don't know. I don't know so much about the news, because that's just fear mongering at its finest for me. That's all I view the news as, is just fear mongering anymore. There's so few actually objective news programs and reporters, and it's all, you know, and I get it. You know, I get it, man. I used to be a journalist, and it's hard to write a completely objective piece, because you're always going to you can't see ultimate reality, because you're always viewing reality through your lens, you know, and you can talk to as many other people as you want and try to get as many different viewpoints and objective opinions as you want. But ultimately, they're just viewing reality through their lens as well. So, you know, it's really hard to say, well, this is true. It's like, well, that may be true for you, but it's not true for everyone. And it's difficult territory to navigate, you know?
Extremely difficult. And we're facing that more and more, ever more, as we move deeper into the internet age, where it's really hard to know what is true.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know what's really going on in the world. Right. It's really difficult because, everybody has a lens. A lot of people have an angle that they're working. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then here I am as one individual person who, you know, I have no idea what it's like in Afghanistan on the ground. Right. I can hear reports of what's going on there, but I have no idea what it's actually like there. Right. And even that, it's like one person in Afghanistan 20 miles from another person, their experience may be completely different. Mm-hmm. And so who's to say what the Afghanistan experience is like? It's once you start getting into it, there's so many gradations and so many gray areas. And here we are as just lowly individuals, just trying to watch the news. And it's just easier to say, okay, this must be true. Right. But that's obviously doing all of us a disservice, especially this day and age that we live in, where it seems like agenda-driven reporting is the norm now, versus trying to give the populace an understanding of what is objectively going on, which that alone, like you're saying, is extremely difficult to do. So it's a really tricky situation in terms of the epistemology of our age. It's difficult to know what the actual state of affairs is. Right.
Yeah. Especially with, you know, things like, you know, like you mentioned, Afghanistan. It's like without having the empirical data, you can't have like a priori knowledge of what's going on in any given situation without being in that situation yourself. And then even then, you know, in the case of Afghanistan, if, you know, we're using that as an example, like you still can't really, you could go there and you could walk around but then you're still experiencing that as Keith. You know what I'm saying? You're still Keith Gilmore over there. You're not from Afghanistan. You're not, a Taliban member. You're not, somebody that's not, you don't have the prerequisites to really have the full quote unquote Afghanistan experience, because you can't, you can't. Like, you can go get your experience and that would be your Afghanistan experience. But what is the ultimate reality of the Afghanistan experience? You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? Who even knows?
Yeah. And I think with this, Justin, it harkens back to something we touched on earlier, where when you're in tune with yourself, you can tell the authenticity of another person. Right. I think it's that way with truth too. When you're in tune with yourself, you know what is true. Yeah. I really believe that each person really knows what is true in their heart. And that when we can tap into that, when we can get ourselves in alignment, we can just feel it.
Right.
Which isn't to say I know, what X person is doing right now. It's not that level of knowledge, but it's the level of, it is that collective unconscious, that deep human well of knowledge that we are all tapped into, that we can know if something is true or if something is merely presented as true and is clearly not. So I think that if we all make the effort, and this is again hearkening back to us talking about how change comes through the individual actualizing himself or herself, if we all make the effort to put truth into the world, to only speak truth, and again, truth as I understand it in my heart, I may be missing the mark because I'm speaking and seeing through my lens. Right. But if we're all putting out into the world truth as we truly see it in our hearts, and that will create a world in which truth is the default. And by virtue of that, we'll all be able to understand what's true much more deeply, rather than trying to put an agenda forward because we want our way of seeing things to become the default way of seeing things.
Right.
Really, we're all of our ways of seeing things is the right way. And again, as long as we're tuned in to ourselves, then that will create a world in which we can relax, because we don't have to constantly be on edge that we're being propagandized to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because that's where we're at right now. Especially we can go back to the billboards with that one, and propagandized. It makes me think every time somebody brings up advertisement and just the mess, the ultimate message behind it. I always think about, you ever see the movie They Live with Rowdy Roddy Piper? You haven't seen that one? You'd instantly know the imagery if you saw it. It's the one where he finds a box of sunglasses in this church, right? And when you put the glasses on, it gives you, delivers the real message behind things. So when he puts them on, he sees alien, these skeleton looking alien, people are actually these skeleton looking aliens. And then all the advertisements, it's spend a weekend in the Caribbean. And it just says, marry and procreate. When he puts the glasses on, it just says marry and procreate. It's obey, so it's like ideology glasses. It's lets you see through the ideology to the real message in advertisement and just everything around you, It's I think even money, it said, "This is your God" on the money when he looked at the money with the glasses on. Yeah. You should check that one out, man. It's pretty good. I think you would enjoy it. It's right in line with what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, back to psychedelics, man. I think psychedelics help kind of wake you up to see through a lot of that. You're like, oh man, this is all just fucking bullshit. I can't believe we have a society built on just these ideas, not necessarily ideas, because you can't have anything without the idea. You can't have anything. You can't convey any kind of thought without the language. Nothing really exists without the language to define it, but it's the language that we choose and the way we choose to manipulate the language. Well, not us, but the way the language has been chosen to be manipulated to to put us kind of where we're at as a society right now is super disturbing, man. Like, I'm just not a fan of Western culture. I'm just not a fan of the way we have everything laid out. I'm not a fan of the way they've put this society together. I'm not. I love the idea of being able to like achieve as an individual, you know, like people are like all anti-capitalism. I think capitalism is probably a viable model. It has worked thus far. I think it definitely needs some work. I don't know if it's the best model. I don't know what the best model is. I'm not a politician. I don't claim to have any answers. None. And I definitely am I definitely have a lot of, I'm into social programs. I'm all for community, obviously. Yeah. I think you can tell that through this conversation. Like, I'm all for the greater good. And, you know, I think probably in this country, we should have some sort of centralized healthcare. I think, you know, healthcare I think it's a right that people have. I think everyone has a right to fucking live, you know. I think that, in regards to that, there should be an equality of outcome. But as far as like individual effort put into things, I think, you know, equality of opportunity is important, but equality of outcome should not be guaranteed. But it's a difficult thing, man, you know, trying to balance all that. Like, how do you even put a society together? You know, like, I wouldn't even know where to fucking begin, man. And yeah. I think the fact that we've gotten this far in the world as a species in general, considering that, you know, when you're a kid and you think, I can't wait to grow up like these adults and they know what's going on. It's like, and you become an adult and you're like, oh, nobody knows what's going on. This is terrifying. Like, nobody has any idea what's actually going on. We're all just making this shit up as we go. And now I am fucking existentially horrified. Like, this is terrifying. Nobody has any idea what's going on. And I started realizing that when I was younger. I started doing psychedelics way too early. Like, I think the first time I did psychedelics, I was probably like 14 or 15. And then I was just like, this shit's the truth. You know, I was like, so I've been a very big psychedelic advocate for a long time. I don't do them anymore. Mostly because I'm like I said, in addiction recovery. And just if I want to be true to the program that I am a part of, then I am to stay away from recreational drugs. But that does not mean that I will not keep promoting them for other people, because I have already seen the benefit and the utility for them. And I can't guarantee that my psychedelic career is over by any means. I'm sure it's not. For now, it's a decision that I've made to just kind of take a break from that part of my life and just talk about them more than anything and push the message. You know, I think that's where my utility is at these days, rather than I've had enough psychedelic experiences for any 20 people, you know, like I've had those conversations and gotten those downloads several times, probably more than my fair share. I could have definitely, somebody else can go back and take some of my experiences. But, yeah, man, I think it should almost be a rite of passage. You know, I definitely think that you shouldn't be allowed to be able to participate in the political landscape without having, say, a 3-day ayahuasca experience or something along those lines. I think if you're going to be culpable for any number of citizens within a population, if you're the decisions that you make at the end of the day are going to affect society as a whole, I think you should probably get to know yourself a little fucking better before you start making decisions for other people. You know? Yeah. That's a really interesting thought. I think there's definitely something there to the idea of a rite of passage, which is something we're sorely lacking in this culture that we live in. There's no infrastructure for that. And so we have all of these people walking around and their children wearing adult suits because the adults never brought them into adulthood. And that's, I think, a major issue that we're faced with. And the psychedelics represent an opportunity for that. And in various cultures throughout time have been used as a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. And it creates
a situation in which there is a delineation, or there is an inviting into the deeper level, the adult level, so then we're no longer having the experience of waking up, moving from childhood and realizing, oh, nobody has any idea what's going on.
Right.
And rather, if we have this experience built into our culture, we have that transition where, oh, people know what they're doing. Right. And now I'm being entrusted with guardianship of all of this. And therefore, I feel a sense of a ground to my life that now I can pass that on, and we can all collaborate in figuring out what that is and bringing that into fruition. But I think it's something sorely lacking in our culture, and it needs to be a conversation of what could a rite of passage in our culture look like. And if psychedelics are to be involved, then we really need to put our heads together and figure out, when might that happen? At what age? How do we create a situation in which that's done safely, but also powerfully, and so on and so forth? It's, and like I said, there are many examples throughout time of this working and being done. But there's too many boys in men's suits running around, making decisions. Like you said, like that decision-making power comes with the responsibility to have your eyes open. And it seems like Terence McKenna said, we're led by the least among us. We're led by the least among us. And it's really a shame that that's happening. And it's because they weren't taught the way by their elders.
Yep. Yeah. You know what? It just occurred to me while we were talking about this. It would seem that like the transition from child, especially if we're in the context of, other cultures that have used psychedelics as a rite of passage sort of, thing. It would seem that the ultimate catalyst in that, and this is just something that occurred to me while you were talking, is that the reason for that is the ego dissolution of the psychedelic experience. Because as a child, you need care, right? You're born and you can't care for yourself at all. Humans are useless, essentially, for the first many years. So they need care. Right. So it's a very selfish existence because everybody has to take care of you. It takes a village to raise a child until you become a man or an adult. And then it's your job to take care of the village. And so it seems to me that the reason that they would do that is because of the ego dissolution. Like I said, this is all just speculation on my part, because when you dissolve the self and you see the connectivity that exists between everything and the collective, you start viewing things as we instead of I, and so you go from that selfish child to the benevolent adult through the psychedelic experience. It really makes you open your mind up to the idea that you're not just yourself in the world. Like, you are a part of this world, and it is your job to be a part of this world. It's not just what you can get, it's what you can give.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think of it in terms of, we're talking about the Tao, the duality of everything. We are tasked with something. We have an obligation, and the obligation is to give of ourselves to the collective so that we all can flourish to the best of our ability to do that. Right. And that is a tremendous burden, because we wake up every day and we have the weight of the world on us. Right. It's such a burden to carry. And at the same time, it's a tremendous honor. It's such an honor because we, as individuals, we have the capability of changing this whole thing. Right. And it's both at the same time, and all burdens are honors. And it's a lot, but if we take it seriously and we do our best and we give ourselves grace when we falter, because we're going to falter, and we give ourselves motivation for continuing on, because it's hard to continue on and many people collapse under the weight of it.
Right.
If we allow ourselves to keep pushing forward and carry this burden and honor to the best of our ability, then we feed the collective and the collective feeds us. So we give our strength and we draw upon the strength, and we move ever further toward a harmonious existence.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think you nailed it, man. I think you just resonated a lot of Jordan Peterson for me. I don't know if you listen to a lot of Peterson, but yeah, I think he says, it's the responsibility. Basically what you were just saying. It's that responsibility of being part of society, and what you can do for society and carrying that burden. That's kind of what gives life its meaning, really. Is that responsibility, because without responsibility, if you're just floating through the world, you have no meaning. You have no purpose, but it's that responsibility that gives you purpose, and it's that purpose that gives you meaning. And I think you just resonated a lot of that, man. And, I 100%. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. Because I know for me, like I said, I'm a recovering addict. I was a heroin addict for, like 6 years, something like that. It's in the past now. But, at that point, the only responsibility I had was to myself to, make sure I got my next fix and all that shit. And it was that even after having the psychedelic experience, after getting into that shit, it was like, it was a very selfish existence, and it was a weird existence because at the same time, like, not only did I, want to be okay, but I also didn't want to exist. So like, it was like the shadow and the light, like battling each other, like constantly within myself. And that was a lot to handle. That was a lot to handle. Happy to be past that, but, grateful for it, grateful for the experience, because I don't think I would carry the message that I do today and be as adamant about speaking it and letting other people know. They're like, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, like I said, you can't be free from suffering until you've suffered. You can't know the light until you've walked through the darkness for a while. And that experience for me was that ultimate walk through the darkness for many years, and I think that, like, ultimately it just makes the light burn brighter once you get out of the dark,
Yeah. And the world is so glad to have you here in this capacity, Justin.
Hey, man, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Glad to fucking be here. And it wasn't always that I could say that. For a long time, I wasn't glad to be here. But today, right now, for sure I am. 100%. Really happy to be having this conversation with you. Absolutely.
Likewise.
So I have a question. As far as psychedelic use, do you, some people seem to be on one side of the fence or the other. Some people just are, see utility in both routes. What do you view as far as like microdosing versus macrodosing? Me, I've always been the occasional macrodoser. Like, I think, like Terrence McKenna, 5 grams in silent darkness. That's where you get the most utility for me. That's been my experience, and, I've done, several different types of psychedelics, but for me, the most meaningful ones have always been the psilocybin experiences. Not that DMT wasn't very profound, but it's, I haven't had the opportunity to do ayahuasca. I think if I ever do start doing psychedelics again, that's going to be the route that I go, is going, to Peru and doing an ayahuasca ceremony, because I just, people seem to just gain so much benefit from that. And it's something that I haven't experienced. I have experienced, smokable, orally active DMT. But that's so brief and it's so abrupt. I don't know if you ever partaken in, freebase form DMT, but it's so rapid. you can't really get much from it. It's just like, oh, wow, it's overwhelming. And then you're out of it and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, you don't really get to get in there and like walk around for a little while like you would with the ayahuasca experience. So that's something I've been curious about for a while. And it's probably something that I will end up doing at some point in the future. But for me, the most profound experiences I've ever had, trips, whatever you want to call it, experiences, have always been psilocybin. At least personally. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm particularly drawn to the mushrooms as well. I feel personally most connected with those. And I think that in terms of your question of microdosing, macrodosing, I think there's utility for all of it.
Right.
And you get different things out of different approaches.
Yeah.
And who knows where the upper limit is. There's a teacher, Kalindi Iyi, who he died last year, but he was an advocate for doing 30 to 40 gram mushroom doses.
I saw some of his videos. It was
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And he was far out, a brilliant speaker. And I think that he would kind of build his way up. So he was going into it with a tolerance. But anyway, so who's to say where the upper limit is?
Yeah.
I personally think it's probably somewhere around, 6 or 7 grams. And beyond that, I don't know if you're going any deeper or taking any more back. But there's absolutely something to the silent darkness where you are not getting any input from any of your senses.
Right.
Wearing an eye shade or doing it in the dark as well. And there's no social context that part of you has to be worried about or aware of, right, so that you can really release fully and experience the thing in itself.
Yeah.
There's something that's irreplaceable, that cannot be achieved or gotten to, even if you're doing the kind of therapeutic modality, listening to music on over-ear headphones with the eye shade, with the therapist or sitter in the room, which that has a lot of utility as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that there's room for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that taking a couple grams of mushrooms and going dancing in an ecstatic way can be extremely healing, and you're getting something out of that you're not going to be able to get out of just lying in a couch or a bed. And I think that microdosing shows tremendous promise for people who are dealing with daily depression or anxiety or other ailments that are really limiting them. And, you can't and really shouldn't be doing a 5 gram dose every day or 4 or 5 days a week, but you can do a 0.5 or 0.4 or 0.3, gram.
Yeah, for sure.
3 or 4 or 5 days a week. And so I think there's room for all of it.
Yeah.
It's as long as the approach is proper and respecting of the medicine's tremendous power, because you can get slapped down hard. I'm sure you've been there.
For sure.
If you're not careful.
Yeah.
And even if you are careful, it can happen. So creating the best circumstance, like making sure your mind is right to be doing it, making sure that you're going in with the proper respect, going in with proper intentions, having the proper context, whether it is having a sitter or whether it is in a ceremonial context, and knowing that you're with people you trust. These are all like really important keys to bring into it with you, because these things are extremely powerful. And even the microdosing, you really want to approach it properly, which is having an understanding of respect for the power of this medicine and giving yourself the opportunity to change and be malleable. And if you approach it properly, and I think there is a proper way, or I should say, many proper ways,
Mhm.
but there's certainly improper ways too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where people tend to get into trouble with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, they need to be approached with respect because they are very powerful. And I think, psychedelics, any kind of introspection, which psychedelics can be hugely introspective. Shadow work is nothing but introspection. And I think that one of the things that the two have in common and why they can work in conjunction with each other for good or for ill, is because they can work for good or for ill. So like if you approach it with the wrong mindset and the wrong intention, whether it be psychedelics or shadow work or both of them at the same time, whether you're combining the two, which can be hugely beneficial, they can do as much harm as they can do good if not integrated properly. And I think that a lot of times people overlook that aspect. It's like, yeah, like these are really beneficial, but they can also be pretty detrimental if you fuck around and do it the wrong way. Like people, so we fuck around and find out, right? Yeah. Good luck.
Right. And that's why the infrastructure is so important. This is why I constantly bring this up. There's something to the ritualistic ceremonial application. This is how it was always historically done. And there's something to that, like I said, there's room for many different ways of entering the psychedelic space.
Right.
I don't think merely in a ceremonial context is the only way it should be done. But there really is something to that. And it's because this reaches deep into history. This reaches deep into the human experience. Yeah. And this has been experimented with. And there are people who hold knowledge of
that has been passed down for generations and generations. That's why I said, if I do start dabbling with psychedelics again, I think that traveling to South America and doing an ayahuasca ceremony is probably the way I'm going to go. I'm not just going to go to like a center somewhere that, we do ayahuasca. So like, no, that's great. I could do that at home. I want the experience. I want the ritual. I want the ceremony. I want the Icaros. I want the integration that is provided by people who have been doing this for eons. Like they've perfected this over eons, and that knowledge has been passed down for eons. And I think there's utility in that alone. I think the ritual is one of the most important parts of it. I'm a Dharma practitioner. I don't like to call myself a Buddhist, but because then you get into the whole, like precepts and ordinations and blah, blah, blah. And there's so many different sects of Buddhism. There's Theravada, Mahayana, Zen. I just don't even like getting into those conversations, but I follow the Dharma. Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, and, I read the suttas a lot. So, and a lot of that is the ritual, like with the meditation alone. Like I have a pretty dedicated meditation practice. And while it's my own little ritual that I have developed that I do every morning, it's my ritual, and I do it every morning because it's a ritual. And that's what a ritual is. It's something you do repeatedly, and, we were talking about, the silent darkness experience and that being, very beneficial aspect of one of the different modalities of beneficial, psychedelic experiences is that, not to say that there's not other ways to do it that would also be beneficial for you, but there is something to the silent darkness. And that just I think it's because it's a deeply personal and, meditative experience. Meditation is also in silent darkness for the most part. It's definitely an individual thing. You can be meditating in a group of people, but you're still eyes closed. Nobody's talking. So you're kind of doing it by yourself, even though you're amongst a collective. So yeah, I think that, and I think that's where you find I think it's just the slowing down and the tuning everything out. That's where you get the benefit, because that's when you really start noticing your mind itself. That's really when it's like, no outside influence, nothing else coming in. Just what exists already, that's already in there. And it's looking at those things that already exist without being like having anything, else coming in. I think that's where the utility is at. And you get that through meditation as well. And, there's people who talk about having, like Kundalini type experiences through meditation and reaching what are called the jhanas, which is like the state of ultimate, like elation and just there's like 4 different stages of jhana, or maybe more than that. I'm not even sure. But, I think that's where it's at. Blaise Pascal said all of man's problems stem from his inability to sit in a room quietly by himself. And, I think that's pretty true. I think that's pretty true.
Wow.
And it goes right back to what we were talking about before. People just that distraction. People are always looking for a distraction. Nobody wants to look at themselves. Nobody wants to sit quietly by people. Because it is terrifying. It can be terrifying, especially if you haven't done it and really looked at it before. Nobody wants to do it. And that's why I think a lot of people are, shy away from the psychedelic experience or meditation or things that are introspective. I think people just shy away from introspection in general.
Yeah, I imagine that's probably true. And because so many of us are not at peace with ourselves. And so to sit in silence with ourselves is quite a daunting prospect.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where you have to choose to be bored.
Yeah.
If you have to seek out being bored. You can't, there's always something. If you have a phone on you, then forget about it.
Right.
You can always move yourself away from boredom.
Only boring people get bored, right? That's what they say.
That's another idea. But I think there's something to being bored. Mm-hmm. We've forgotten the art of being bored.
Right. It's just the simple art of doing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something that it made me think of something funny. It's like, people aren't comfortable sitting with themselves. It's like, yeah, but you can't get comfortable sitting with yourself without sitting with yourself. Like you have to do that in order to be able to be comfortable doing that. So yeah, that's the whole reason that I think there's so much utility in meditation is because it teaches you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like sitting in this posture that's not the most comfortable posture, erect spine. Sure, you're kind of relaxed, but, back's erect, sitting generally, legs crossed or, on your knees, depending on the lineage that you study under and the way that they teach you how to do it. But yeah, so it's an uncomfortable, you're sitting perfectly still, not doing any, sometimes your face will itch and you have to notice it and fight the urge to scratch it. It's an uncomfortable thing to do, especially for any length of time. I have yet to go sit a retreat. As I was getting ready to, I had got accepted into a retreat last year and then boom, pandemic. And then now everybody's like, there's a lot of them that just aren't even going on anymore. Or there's a lot of really tight regulation and they're a lot harder to get into. And the ones that are, and let's be realistic, a lot of them are quite expensive. Now, some of them are free. Those are harder to get into. And they're really the more intense meditation retreats where you're literally, sitting in a meditative state for upwards of 12 plus hours a day. So you're literally sitting there in silence, doing nothing for 12 hours a day for 10 days, and from what I hear, a lot of people cave like in the first 2 days. They're like, I can't do this. I just can't do this. And cause it is hard. It's not easy, but that's the point. It's not easy and it's not comfortable, but that it teaches you to be at peace with the uncomfortable. It just teaches you to accept things as they are in the present moment and be content with that. Not look outside of yourself for anything, any other source of comfort or alleviation. Just you have nothing to rely on but yourself. And, from also what I've heard from several of my friends who have sat many retreats is that, after the first couple of days are a little uncomfortable, but after that, it's like almost like a state of extreme bliss and joy because you do hit that jhana stage a lot where it's just like extreme, just elation. And then you reach just this point of equanimity to where it's just like, okay, this is what we're doing. And man, I'm trying to get into a couple a couple more this year. I don't ever stop trying to get into these meditation retreats because just, first of all, just trying to be able to get into one alone is very difficult unless you've got thousands of dollars to pay for one that you can afford. I'm trying to go to one of the hardcore 10-day Goenka retreats, which are, as I've said, quite difficult. That seems to be more along my line. First, because, I like doing the hard things. And second, because I'm fucking broke. Let's be realistic. They're free. So like, I'm going to take that option, but they're a little harder to get into. And I'm in school right now and I work and I've got, family life and I make a podcast. And so like finding the time, especially with school, like I've found that a lot of times some of them are very receptive to the idea, but, some professors, when you say, hey, I need, can you excuse these absences so I can go sit a 10-day meditation retreat? They're like, get the fuck out of here with that. And it's like, no, I'll be a better student for it. But they don't understand that.
Yeah, that's a school of its own sort.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, it's like the most intense school, I think, is the school of the self, like, I think, like we've been saying pretty much this entire time, I think that ultimately your performance in every aspect of life is entirely dependent on the amount of work you do on self-actualization. Yeah.
And I think you're right that turning toward discomfort is the way. And what you're talking about is like doing the 10-day retreat. That is so the opposite of using heroin. It's like, it's so the opposite, choosing ultimate comfort versus choosing profound discomfort. And the evidence of which path leads to a better outcome is just undeniable.
Right.
There's a Aesop fable or short telling of, when Zeus tasked Prometheus with creating the pathway to self-actualization for human beings, he created two paths. And one of the paths, it was just, a nice, easy walk through a beautiful field and no trials or travails. But as you kept going, it turns into this impassable place.
Right.
And the other path, it starts off in this extremely harrowing, difficult place, but then it ends up opening into a beautiful, serene place.
Right.
And I think that that's just really deep, timeless wisdom, that if we are constantly choosing the easy path, we're going to end up in a detrimental place. Yeah. And if we're choosing the discomforting path and, not just willy-nilly throwing ourselves into something uncomfortable without any greater purpose, but to choose that which is uncomfortable for the purpose of achieving a greater situation.
Right.
I think that will always be the path, and we aren't taught that, and we aren't shown that, but we're learning it and we're remembering it.
Yeah. Well, thank God people are waking up to that. At least, some of us. And I think the ones that have woken up to that, I think, are the ones that are so important to spread the message to other people, And I really appreciate you doing that, man. I really appreciate, what you're doing for the world, and your little bit of help to end some of the suffering, man, or at least, reduce it by a degree, And so like, I'm very grateful for you just as a person, man.
Cheers, Justin. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Thanks.
We just got to tend our own piece of the garden, like you said.
That's it, man. All we can do to help other people is work on ourselves. So speaking of working on ourselves, where can people find you at?
You can find me. You can, if you're interested in some of the ideas I'm saying, and you would like to read my writing, you can go to keithgilmore.com, just my name. And that's where I put my writing. And if you're interested in my professional work, you can check out texturecoaching.com and the integratedman.org. And that's all on my website links as well. So
nice.
Yeah, keithgilmore.com. That's where to find me.
Awesome. Excellent, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to have a conversation with me, man. I'll definitely keep in touch with you, man, because this has been super fun, and we'll have to do this again because I really enjoy these kinds of conversations, and I just don't get enough of them. I think I get a lot more than a lot of other people because I do this podcast, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do it in the first place, man, is like just being able to reach out and talk to like-minded individuals about topics that I think are like really important for society as a whole, you know, and like not only like, yeah, they benefit me, you know, I've gained a lot just from doing this podcast and talking to the pretty broad cross section of, independent and spiritual thinkers that I have encountered, in the course of like recording the past however many episodes I've done. And I hope to continue that. And ultimately by benefiting me, you know, like I said, it benefits society as a whole. And if anybody gains anything from any of the episodes that I put out, if they gain anything from this one, then I feel like my job has been done, you know, and it's been done efficiently. So that's, you know, we just all do our little piece, right? That's all we can do.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, man. And, like I said, I will keep in touch. Let's do it again.
Let's do it.
Thanks again to Keith Gilmore for being on the show. If you'd like to get in touch with Keith or check out any of his work, it can be found at keithgilmore.com. He also offers coaching through texturecoaching.com. And don't forget to check out The Integrated Man, which is a community-oriented program for reconnecting men with their purpose. And that can be found at theintegratedman.org. And in the words of Timothy Leary, think for yourself, question authority. This has been Dharma Junkie. Namaste.